Okay, ready.
Good evening and welcome to the January 19th, 2022 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Advisory Commission. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm assuming one of you wonderful staff members will put that up for us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Mrs. Vesquez, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Ferris?
Here.
Commissioner Hyatt?
Here.
Vice Chair Mel? Commissioner Pletcher?
Here.
Yeah. And Chair Limo?
Here. I have to go to our city attorney and to, I imagine, staff. The next item on our agenda is actually the election of a new chair, whose term will expire in January of 2023. My question is, with our vice chair being absent, should we put this off until our February meeting, or should we deal with 4 commissioners that we do have here tonight? What is the recommendation of staff and our city attorney?
Well, from my perspective, you could go ahead and move forward and make the appointments if you would like. You could also move the item to the next meeting and wait till you have a full body. It's up to the body. If you want to appoint someone on a temporary basis, you could also do that.
All right. I would like to put forth a suggestion and see if we can have a consensus from our members. I would suggest, because he did accept the vice chair role, that his expectation is that he would become chair. So I would like to nominate Vice Chair Email as our chair. And because he's not here, I would like to nominate Mick Ferris as our vice chair. And my suggestion would be that if we concur with that, depending on our vote, that we would then turn this meeting over to vice chair, to whoever the vice chair is. So with that, I'd like to put forth his nomination, Vice Chair Email as our chair through 2023 with his concurrence when he attends, and Mick Ferris as our vice chair. So that is my motion. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. City Attorney, because there are 2 different items on our agenda, I think we need to split them and have individual votes now.
Let me look and let me pull up the agenda here. I was having trouble having it load.
Yeah, they are agendized as item 4 for the chair and item 5 for the vice chair.
Okay, here, let me make it really simple.
Yeah, then I would take them one at a time.
All right, because the person for chair will not be here, I'll move item 5 first. And that would be the nomination of Mick Ferris as our vice chair. That would be my first nomination. And now open that up for discussion. Yes, Commissioner Hyatt, you were on mute. You're off.
So we went from having a conversation whether to move this forward to right into nomination, right? Is that, I mean,
yes,
procedurally, are we doing something wrong? Our first thing on agenda is election of a new chair. Shouldn't that be the first thing?
Here's the reason why I did that. Okay, and again, I will apologize, having been through this now 12 times. The reason why I did that is because normally, if we would have done the chair first, The chair, without a vice chair, would have taken on the agenda. Because the vice chair is not here, I felt if we, and I concur with the rest of staff or the rest of the commissioners and the city attorney, the reason why I went for vice chair first was simply a common sense one. The vice chair, in the absence of the chair, would take over the running of the meeting. So that is the only reason. And by the way, again, it has been my experience in the past that the chair does have the ability to move items on the agenda in different order. But that's my rationale behind it. If we were to move, in theory, if we were to move the chair first, we would have no chair for the rest of the meeting.
Well, that's on the assumption that the chair is who you want to be the chair, right?
No, it's not.
But
It
because
is- it is on the-
I'm ready to put forward a nomination for a chair.
Other than the vice chair?
Is there anything written in law that says the vice chair has to be the?
No, Commissioner Hayek, there isn't. This is, as you may imagine, this is as very similar to council and other places. This is the way that the customary way that it's been done, that the vice chair has the most experience. And so that's why they have done it. Listen, it can be done. First of all, I want to find out from the city attorney, do I have the right to do the,
Excuse
never
me,
really had
Chair.
this happen before.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
With due respect, I just got an email from Vice Chair email. He's saying that he can't find the Zoom link for tonight's meeting.
Okay.
Judy, can you please resend him the meeting link?
Okay,
Yes,
that's
I'll
great.
resend it right now.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay, so I think.
So am I
with-
permitted to make a nomination or am I not permitted to make a nomination?
I think any member of the commission is permitted to make a nomination.
That's correct.
We're not going to open nominations now. If the vice chair is trying to get on, I'm not going to open nominations when we're milliseconds away from his joining our meeting. If that is a different question.
Well, you opened nominations already when you made the nomination, didn't you?
Go ahead. Let's do this. Rather than belabor the point with the right or privilege of the existing chair, let's go ahead. We've opened nominations. Commissioner
Mr.
Hyatt,
Chair?
go ahead and make your nomination.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
if it could, I genuinely believe in honoring the traditions unless there is any significant reason otherwise. And if we have information that the vice chair is about to attend the meeting, I would
Yes,
move that we table this motion until the vice chair attends the meeting.
That's what I was originally going to do. Yes.
So if we want to either agree to postpone it, we can do that collegially, or I would ask that my privileged motion be voted on so that we can wait for the vice chair.
Okay. What is the preference, to vote on Commissioner Ferris's motion, or just collegially agree that we are going to wait for our vice chair to join us, which appears to be a technical snafu as to why he is unable to. And I will tell you, I've never seen this happen before, so it'll be interesting to move forward. But it's almost always been a ceremonial role. We'll deal with
And
it.
we just were able to resend them the link about a minute ago. So.
Okay.
I think it's fine waiting, but I will state that on the planning commission, while I sat on the planning commission, we did not operate in tradition. I served as the vice chair, and they operated outside of tradition, in making the chair nomination. So
Yeah.
we're not.
And I can appreciate that. We have always, well, when I say always, 12 years as the longest sitting commissioner. We've always operated in tradition. And I think the main reason we've done that is because this is a committee that has very, very distinct lines. It is, I don't know if I'd call it ceremonial. It is more just orderly. And also, I also think, even though government is not that way in 2021 or 22, it's really just kind. That's all. It's I want to make sure that.
It's really kind, but there's no precedent. I want to be very clear. There's no precedent for it. It's a
There
nice
is a
thing.
precedent on this committee, Commissioner Pletcher. There is a precedent on this committee. There's
It's
no
not a
precedent
sta-
in the
it's
city.
not a standing precedent in the city.
Right.
I will argue that case historically, that there has been a long-standing, decades-long tradition. It is usually an exception to go.
You are
to
correct,
go
sir.
otherwise.
You are correct.
I understand.
It's very confusing. I gotta honestly tell you that this is kind of new territory, is that in this commission, which is my purview at this point in time until we make the change, I've never seen it different. But that doesn't mean it can't be. It just means you have to have the votes to make it different. So we'll take it from there.
Well, procedurally, your term expired September of 2021.
That's not true.
We never took any action to extend that.
That is incorrect.
How is that incorrect? So
I have been
I'll go back
told-
to the minutes of
Okay,
December.
listen. We're not going to belabor this any more than we need to.
Specifically stated in the minutes, and what was voted on was the term run through September of 2021.
That was
Which I notified
extended.
district staff of that back in September.
That was extended per the extension of our meetings and the postponements of our meetings. So it has been on the agenda, which everyone, including the public, has had for 72 hours, that my role as chair would work through the appointments of the two offices. And that also is precedent, because unfortunately, the last 3 or 4 years, with the workload of the commission being relatively small, we have always had to go one meeting. In fact, I don't remember the last time we were actually able to go, even in January. Last year, we went through February. So, but we have our full commission here. So we are going
Mr.
to.
Chairman, given that the vice chair has come to attend, I withdraw my motion for tabling the motion.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, Vice Chair Email. And the first thing I will do is put into nomination Vice Chair Email as our next chair of the Traffic Commission. Vice Chair Email, your mute is on. Do you have, I can't see what you're saying because your mute is on. Can you hear us?
Yeah, okay, finally. I'm having so many technical difficulties tonight.
I'm so sorry.
What was Commissioner Ferris's motion to remove me from the board for being?
Oh, no. No, but he did mention that he was a little uncomfortable with the fact that the 49ers really stand in our way of going a little further through the NFL. But that's another point for another day. No, no, we were just trying to move through the system in anticipation of your coming. So you're here now. Do you accept the nomination as Traffic Commission Chair?
I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for Traffic Commission Chair? Commissioner Hyatt.
I nominate Mr. Pletcher.
Okay, so where is, which do we do? Do we say, oh, here, let's try it this way. All those in favor of Commissioner Email becoming our chair, please signify by saying aye.
Oh, hold on one second.
Oh, go ahead.
So since we're in a Zoom world here and we're having online meetings, any votes that we're taking need to be done by roll call?
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, Mrs. Vasquez, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Given that there were two nominations, is it appropriate for the roll call to be called and we cast our vote for who should be?
I'm fine with whatever the commission prefers or
So
whatever.
we should vote on one motion at a time.
Okay, so we'll first vote on Commissioner Email.
Usually you take the last motion first.
Okay, then we will vote on Commissioner Pletcher as the chair.
All right, I'll go ahead and call it. Okay, so Commissioner Ferris,
No.
Commissioner Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Pletcher,
Yes.
Vice Chair Amell.
No.
And Chair Lemon.
No.
Okay, so motion fails 3-2. So now we're voting on the other.
Now you do a vote on the first motion.
Okay, so this is for Vice Chair Amell for chair nomination. Commissioner Ferris,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt,
No.
Commissioner Pletcher,
Yes.
Vice Chair Amell,
Yes.
and Chair Lemo.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. Congratulations.
Congratulations. And next on the agenda, I believe, won't the agenda take place? No offense, Chair Email. Won't he take over the agenda right now? Okay, it's all yours.
This instant, I am to take over the meeting.
Yes, and I'd like to make a nomination for vice chair, please.
Absolutely.
And I would like to nominate Commissioner Ferris as vice chair.
Do we have any other nominations? Commissioner Hayek.
I'll nominate Mr. Pletcher.
Any other nominations? So since we have two competing nominations, we take the last motion first, and we have Ms. Vasquez call the roll on Mr. Pletcher's nomination.
Okay, so Commissioner Ferris,
May I defer to the end?
Commissioner Hyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Pletcher,
Yes.
Vice Chair Amell.
Am I still the vice chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. Chair Amell. Correction. Chair Amell
Yes.
and Vice Chair, wait, you don't have it. Commissioner Lemo
No.
and Commissioner Ferris.
Abstain.
So with this, it looks like motion carries 3-1 or 2. I'm not sure, but
3-1. Yep.
yeah. So
It's
congratulations.
a 3-1-1. Is that the vote?
Mhm.
That carries.
Yeah, it carries. Congratulations.
So then the second nomination does not need to be moved. We don't have to take a roll on the second nomination.
Correct.
Okay. Do we extend congratulations to Commissioner Pletcher for now becoming vice chair?
Congratulations.
Okay.
Your seat's warm, Mr. Chair, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm trying to keep it warm as best I can. So we're going to go ahead and get through this now. Moving forward, Ms. Vasquez, can you please make the public comments announcement?
Yeah. This is the time and place for public comments. Registration for public comments was available for those wishing to address the Traffic Commission regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. Speakers for specific agenda items shall be called and heard during the specific item. All remarks should be addressed to the Traffic Commission as a whole, and all documents for the commission and the official record should be presented to the recording secretary prior to the meeting. Speakers are requested to state their name and their community of residence for the record. Under state law, public comment matters may not be considered by the Traffic Commission unless listed on the agenda, but may be referred to the city engineer for administrative follow-up. We have one individual that has requested to speak, and pursuant to Traffic Commission standards, public comment speakers are allowed 3 minutes.
Okay, may we have the first speaker, please?
So the first speaker is Karen Martin. Please click unmute and state your name and city of residence for the record. You will be reminded when you have 1 minute remaining, and again when your time is up to speak.
Thank you. My name is Karen Martin. I live in Thousand Oaks. I've lived here since 1984. I have had a business on the boulevard, and I'm currently living at the corner of Lynn and Jance. The last time I came to the traffic meeting to speak, I asked for cameras, and I was told that no, you can't have cameras because cameras, aren't good for people's rights. And now I understand we have cameras, license reading cameras, but I would like the council to consider putting one here at Lynn and Jance. It's a dangerous intersection. All you have to do is ask Caltrans. We've had 3 accidents in the same location this year, just up the hill because there is a turn and a hill. We have a bicycle lane going in both directions. We have emergency vehicles, and you guys probably don't realize it because you haven't done a traffic study out here. But we have a lot of construction, a lot of heavy trucks, and it's a racetrack. I have been trying to work with the traffic department. I called the traffic sergeant, and I haven't heard anything from them. But I was told by dispatch that when a vehicle went by that was racing or loud, I should call them. Realizing that I've built my wall tall, a lot of times I can't give them a description. And I really think it's a death waiting to happen, and would love some help down here. Someone on the committee, and I won't pick them out because I know I'm not supposed to do that, but made a comment to me that there were always plenty of police around, and you can go back and look at the film and you can see who said it. And I think the reason there's always a lot of police around him is because he's on Thousand Oaks Boulevard or in Westlake Village. You are adding numbers and numbers of people to this community.
Martin, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. You don't even know how many people you have because people are living in garages and in spare rooms. You think that you have 125 homeless people. Well, you've got 262 homeless children in Conejo Valley school districts. So traffic is bad here. It's ridiculous. I would appreciate some help. I've spoken with Amy Commons of HCA in Los Robles, requested that she would ask. It's not that expensive for another camera, and I know Mr. Caruso is adding cameras to his development. And I've asked HCA to do that. But if you could consider doing that, and maybe also consider hiring some more police because they are really overworked. When I call now, I cannot get through because it's non-emergency. And by the time my non-emergency comes
Ms.
around,
Martin, your time to speak is up. Thank you.
thank you so much.
Okay, do we have any other speakers? Okay. Are there any responses from staff to the public speaker comments?
Yes, Chair Amel, this is Nader Haidari, the city engineer. Yeah, I would reply by indicating that we will share our comments with the Thousand Oaks Police Department, and they are the ones that would be in a position to address these concerns, and any comments about potential use of cameras that would again fall under their jurisdiction. So they weren't able to have a representative join us tonight, but we will relay her concerns to them. I believe they're already aware of them. We'll follow up.
Okay. Any other comments or responses from staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item in the agenda, which is the summary notes from our last meeting on October 20th, 2021. Are there any comments from any of the commissioners on those summary notes? All right, seeing that there are none, we can move to the next item, which is our engineers reports. And before Before we call on Senior Engineer Jim Machiko to present the first report, I would like to explain the flow of the meeting for the benefit of those watching us tonight and residents who registered to speak under this meeting's engineers' reports. Each of these reports will be followed by a discussion between the traffic commissioners and staff. When that discussion is done, if we have speakers, staff will share a list of registered speakers on the screen and start calling the speakers one by one. Senior Engineer Jim Machiko, can we ask you to present the first engineer's report?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair Imo. There is no slide presentation that we normally handle or have for agenda items. This is basically an item that we're seeking feedback from the Commission on a potential facelift to Resolution 2009-45, which is the city's speed hump policy. You may recall during the October meeting last year, when considering a speed hump petition for Columbia Drive, the commissioners made a request to have staff look into updating the speed hump policy. As a result, attachment 1 in the staff report identifies a number of recommended additions, modifications, or deletions that we believe are necessary. Some of the recommended edits are based on the comments raised by the commission during the October meeting, and some are based on changes believed necessary by staff. So this time, staff is requesting feedback from the commission on attachment 1 in the staff report. Based on the input we received tonight, we'll take the direction provided by the commission, come back in the spring with a draft speed hump resolution for the commission to consider, and then forward that onto the city council if you believe there's merit to it, so that the city council can take a look at the matter. So with that, we'll take feedback on attachment 1 at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Machiko. Are there any questions by any of the commissioners of the staff? Commissioner Hyatt.
So if a change like this is made, would this be only for moving forward, or do we go back and we adjust current existing speed bumps in certain locations or all locations?
Okay, this is strictly on the policy, not resolution 2009-45. Language changes to that resolution. We're not looking at any specific locations where we've already installed speed humps. If that's what you were, if that's what you were asking.
Right, and nor I think is the currently, I obviously it's up for discussion, but we're not contemplating the design changes to make this, these humps and so forth taller or wider or any different necessarily in terms of the design itself. Just more focus on the policy and what would qualify or not qualify.
Right. So what I'm saying is if those changes result in a resident saying, well, I've asked for speed humps before, and I want to reevaluate it under the existing policy. Is that what we do? We revert to the new policy for any new things going forward when we're evaluating, right? Okay. Thank you.
That's correct.
Do we have any other questions from any of the commissioners?
I have just a question and a comment, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Machiko, for the staff report. I just wanted to kind of recommunicate my thoughts from October of just, I think it's pertinent every so often because this original resolution is a 2009 item. My just general takeaway is you guys are the experts in the room. I think it just needs a facelift update. I generally like the red lines that were proposed for it because best practices, updates to best practices. I did want to ask, specifically, it was section B, rules and regs, item number 3, the prerequisite education program. You do have that item red line. It is deleted. I wanted to ask, is there going to be anything to take the place of what that originally was, or are we just not are we not even doing the prerequisite education program anymore? Or I just want to make sure if speed humps, bumps, anything in between are going in, neighbors are going to be made aware of what essentially is going to, is coming essentially. So I just wanted to ask on that point.
Okay, yeah, item 3, I think it's on the screen right now, is the prerequisite education program that we had a while back, which is called the Neighborhood Speed Awareness Program. And in that program, the neighbors would work together. They would have a radar device that the city would loan to the residents. And with that device, they would be able to monitor speeds along the street to get an idea of how fast vehicles are traveling. One of the things that have happened over time is that when we have requested that the residents go through this program, they did need to have volunteers to spend time in the field, work together. However, unfortunately, whenever we requested that they participate, they never really, submitted their paperwork to, say that they were going to complete the program. So at this point, it's probably better just to delete this, since we know that, the residents, especially with the time being short as what it is for their schedules, we're just going to go ahead and study it if they provide the necessary petition signatures and not have them participate in this prerequisite education program.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I wanted to get an understanding of why that section was getting deleted. But overall, again, just to sum it up, I mean, just a facelift, update, refresh, best practices. You're the experts in the room, and generally, I think this is a fantastic red line.
All right. Commissioner Ferris, do you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I just had one question just on the logistics of it. I know, Mr. Machigo, you had mentioned kind of the process on it. I just want to make it clear in my head. Here, we're analyzing the resolution as it is, plus the red lines, to provide feedback, not necessarily to detail exact language, so that you're able to go back with the team and craft a revised resolution that eventually we would have an opportunity to review and potentially make revisions in specific language relative to that new resolution. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, we're not looking for exact language. If you have any recommendations tonight, we're giving you this. The red lines show you the general direction that we're looking at taking this, so that when we bring this back in a more what we feel is a more complete draft form, you'll take a look at it, and then maybe at that point, if you have any wording modifications, that's when we'll make those changes.
Okay, I just want to confirm that so that I know how to be constructive during this meeting. The only other thing, I did have some specific questions, but I remember from the last time that we were discussing speed humps that Chair Email had very specific questions with respect to how the language of the resolution was, and I would defer to his, given his legal background, to be able to ask some specific questions if he has them, and then ask any that might not have been on my list. If he doesn't have any, I'm happy to go through them, but I would defer to Chair Email from his, based on his legal experience, to go first.
Okay. Well, so if there are no other questions, I mean, I'll go ahead and just ask my questions, which, as Commissioner Ferris pointed out, the controversy at the last hearing in which we were looking at this resolution, I mean, in my estimation, was there was language in this resolution that talked about warrants required for speed humps. And then there was some alternative language in the resolution that talked about speed cushions in lieu of speed humps. When I read this revised resolution, it appeared to me that the alternate remedy of speed cushions is kind of being taken out of the equation. And that this resolution is being rewritten really to just speak to warrants required for speed humps. But I mean, I did notice that in paragraph, it looks like paragraph 8, which was that provision that's made reference to speed lumps in lieu of speed humps. There is now being given discretion as to whether speed cushions can be installed in lieu of speed humps. But I suppose my number one question is, are the warrants that apply to speed humps, are those still applicable to speed cushions? In other words, in order to install speed cushions, do you have to first meet the warrants for a speed hump and then exercise, the exercise of discretion only comes after the warrants have all been established? Is my understanding correct?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, the person or neighborhood or residents that go through this process, when they do have to meet the speed hump policy, that's basically this for, 8, I believe there's 8 items. All 8 items have to be satisfied in order to qualify for speed humps. Actually, there's 9. And then at that point, the staff will then have the discretion to determine what is the most appropriate calming device, whether it's speed humps or speed cushions. Those are the only 2 devices we're really considering to putting in on a neighborhood street.
Okay, so if residents come forward with a petition and they're asking for the installation of speed humps on their street, the initial analysis is, well, does the street meet the warrants for speed hump installation? And if it does, then there is discretion that can be exercised by the city to either install speed humps or speed cushions. But if the warrants are not met, then neither speed humps nor speed cushions may be installed. Is that correct?
Well, they won't be recommended by staff for approval. However, the commission and city council, they may, or at least traffic commission may make a recommendation that although the requirements for speed humps are not met, you can forward a recommendation to the city council so that they consider the installation. You may override this, staff's recommendation not to install for a particular street.
Okay, that was primarily my inquiry as it related to the revisions that have been done. Just as it related to the issue that we were speaking about at the last meeting. But if there are any other questions from any of the commissioners, Commissioner Lemo.
Yes, Chair Email. I just want to stress a point and see if I'm correct on this. Whether we were supporting the staff recommendation or in a contrary opinion to a staff recommendation, that is, unless it's under $20,000, that is just simply a recommendation to council. It is not a decision that can be made by the commission. It is a recommendation to city council. I just wanted that to be understood.
Right, yeah, I think we understood that. Commissioner Ferris?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for providing your concerns from the last meeting into there so that I wanted to reiterate them, but I think that you had a very specific thing that I wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to ask staff of. So If I can, I have some follow-up questions about this. Some of this is to kind of ensure that I have an understanding of what the process entails and how to potentially provide feedback to make it useful for residents on when they know what's going to happen with respect to any requests for speed humps or speed cushions. The way this is done right now, the thought is to revise the resolution to be really tailored toward when the public can request speed calming devices for their streets. Is that because before it was city council could do it, but now we're kind of striking that out and really focusing on the petitions. Is that correct?
That is correct, because basically all the requests that we've received or brought to the commission are the ones that where the residents have come out and circulated a petition and did the legwork to bring it to the city that they're looking for speed humps or speed cushions. Those are the only devices that we would consider, not roundabouts or any other type of traffic calming devices.
And with the revision in the language and kind of like specifying clearly, there's a speed hump and there's a speed cushion, the discretion as to whether a hump or a cushion is really the best device, staff can provide that, or the commission can provide that understanding. But the requirements about whether staff would recommend that are going to be the same regardless of whether they're humps or cushions. Is that right?
Yes, all the numerical criteria, they all have to be satisfied, and whether and then based on that, we'll as staff make that determination whether it should be speed humps or speed cushions.
Okay. For the criteria about eligibility, and if I think if I read this right, and I think this, as you mentioned in this hearing, there's a specific set of criteria which would enable one to qualify such that if they met all of them, then only then could staff recommend to the commission the installation of a speed hump. If any one of them were not met under the resolution, staff would not be able to recommend it. Is that the case currently in kind of what we're thinking about?
Yes, that's correct. They need to meet all the 9 criteria at this point.
Okay.
And I think in this, I believe we recommended a 10th criteria be added, which is that a subject street segment shall not be considered for speed humps if it's already been reviewed in the past 36 months.
Okay. That's helpful. Along these lines, because there are 10 criteria to be evaluated, some of these seem like they're known before residents would go and circulate any of the petitions, and some are only known after there is an actual evaluation of the area. So, for example, the road width, it has to be wider than 40 feet. Like the residents should know that. I guess my concern is they go out and they say they want the petitions, and it's really clear from the outset, staff is not going to be able to recommend this for a speed hump because it's clear before they ever started collecting signatures. They can't do it, not under the resolution. Is there a way to break those out just so that it's clear? The residents should be able to know those beforehand. And then there are other ones such as the speed of incidents and other things like that could only be done after, so that they know beforehand. They might still want to have this in front of the traffic commission, but they would know beforehand that they would not get a staff recommendation if one of those weren't met.
Okay, yeah, usually it's criteria 2, which is traffic volume, and then the speed of traffic. Those are usually the 2 unknowns, whether or not they're going to qualify. The other ones are pretty straightforward, whether or not it's the width of the road, number of travel lanes. Item number 7 and number 8 might be unknowns as well. Whether or not we can control the approach speed at the very first installation of a speed hump. That just takes a little bit of time for us to think about and consider. And then the emergency response issue, that's something we'd have to discuss with the fire department, police department, something like that. That's also usually an unknown.
And maybe number 9 also, all of that, you can kind of, it depends on the design of the neighborhood.
Yeah, and number 10, if it's been evaluated, we would know that beforehand when someone comes in. I'm just trying to think of the residents that are asking for staff time and consideration and a traffic commission meeting, to know ahead of time that if one of the criteria that we already know is already not met, they can go ahead and collect signatures. They just know they're going to be opening up a meeting where their staff can't possibly recommend it, and that they're bucking a trend. That doesn't mean then that the traffic commission can't recommend it or the city council can't ultimately approve it. If that's my understanding, but at least the residents would know that beforehand. Is that an appropriate understanding of kind of what the criteria are or how that can benefit the residents?
Yeah, that's
Commissioner Ferris, usually what happens is residents will come to us, to the staff first, and they discuss this with us.
Mhm.
And we usually do discuss the geometrics of the situation with them. And many times, Mr. Rishiko have notified them that this is not going to be going through because of those limitations. And this is a common practice. As a common practice, that gets weeded out first. And usually we do send them the petition forms and everything else after we decided either they want to go ahead with it regardless, or we find it reasonable or feasible to go through the process. I hope that helps.
Yes, and that's excellent. And because I think I think it's just a matter of ensuring that they're well informed about what can be done for them under the resolutions about doing that. Thank you for that. So I'm providing that feedback if that's helpful in crafting the resolution to make it clearer for residents. Then take that as you will. The one thing I do remember, which was a concern at least for me, which was during the actual evaluation of it, where the speeds were monitored. In one case, I thought was actually quite close to an intersection in which there could very well be a slowing of speed, which would kind of give an indication that, maybe by the nature of where the things were being monitored, 75% of the speeds might not exceed 25% if somewhere else were there. So I don't know the best way to reword that in a way to ensure that it is representative of where we think the speed concerns are. I think we just want to make sure that we're providing the right data when it comes to the traffic evaluation. And one additional thing I think I just wanted to, is it because speed humps and speed cushions are capitalized, they seem like they're terms of art. Is it important that we define it in some way so that the people understand what that is? Or is this kind of because there's no longer a conditional criteria of when it's a speed hump, and in those cases it could be a speed lump or cushion or something. It's just it either is or isn't, and staff has a discretion as to which of the type. Is that as important?
Well, that's something that we can actually make a reference to the plates that were also included, or the other attachments from the road standards that show what a speed hump is and what a speed cushion is, that include in this.
Okay, that might be helpful.
Yeah.
But it is clear, and I think from Cherry Mill's commentary as well, right, is that these criteria they're just like, these are the criteria which we judge it. The discretion would be which of these particular exhibits might be the best one if one is to be recommended. Okay, and then just lastly, for clarity on this, requests are initiated by residents. City is defining the area through which they are going to be collecting petitions. They need to get 75% of the homes?
The property owners fronting. the
Property
street,
owners. 75% of the affected property owners.
fronting
There will
the
be an
street.
evaluation beforehand as well as like during the traffic evaluation to determine staff's position about that. If they meet the threshold of the 75, the commission gets a report. Commission provides its recommendation, which may be counter to the staff report. Either there is a favoring of it and the commission denies it, or that there's no recommendation for it, but the commission supports it. That is a recommendation only, and it goes to council. If it is recommended for approval, if it is not recommended for approval by the commission, unless it is appealed within 14 days, matters closed. Is that the right process?
Yes, that's very accurate.
Okay. That's all I wanted to ask through, because I just wanted to have an understanding of how the process worked and what we'd be recommending. So I think that was it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your indulgence.
Sure. Commissioners have any other questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I have one final question, which is in the resolution, when you look at the second warrant, which is the traffic volume, and the warrant really says the average traffic volume must exceed 2,000 vehicles per day. But we're going to give you a break and maybe reduce that number to 1,500 vehicles per day if you can show any of these other criteria are met. And I know the staff has already indicated that it intends to cure some of the ambiguity or maybe some of the lack of clarity in this language. But my question was, is that 1,500 vehicles per day number, is that something that, there's like a basis for? I mean, why couldn't the number be something like 1,250 or 1,300 or, some lesser number? Because this warrant right here, I think the criteria under this warrant, I think are really important. I mean, I think some of these things can really factor into a decision to install speed humps. I mean, specifically the one about, schools adjacent, maybe are there parks, a park located on the street, blind curves. I mean, I think some of this stuff's really important. And I, commented on that at the last hearing. And so, if the city was to reduce the 1,500 vehicles per day to maybe, 1,250 or something, I mean, it seems like then these criteria would have an opportunity to get factored into the equation more commonly, or maybe more often than they otherwise would. So I was just wondering if the city had considered, if the staff had considered maybe reducing that 1,500 vehicle per day number.
Well, I think we would. I mean, at this point, we're taking input. So if you think that that's something that should be looked at, or maybe at the next meeting, commissioners may want to look at that number more carefully and maybe make a suggestion as to, you had mentioned 1,250 instead of 1,500. That section of the policy was brought up, years and years ago. The city council gave us general direction to give some, I guess, make it a little bit easier if a road had certain road conditions which are listed A through J in that section. But the 1,500 is not set in stone. We can always modify that on this facelift the criteria.
Is tonight the night where we're supposed to make those recommendations, or do we still have that opportunity after the staff revises the resolution and then brings it back?
We can either tonight or at the next meeting. I mean, if you guys want to discuss that number, the 1,500 number, and if there's some agreement that maybe that number should be lower, we can bring that back on the next time we present this item in a more of a draft form.
Okay. Commissioner Lemo.
Thank you, Chair. Email. While I can't really disagree with you on whether or not the 1,500 number is right and whether it should be 1,250. I am completely in favor of adjusting that number, but I think there has to be some rationale to adjusting that number. So, for example, if you start off with a baseline of 1,500, if every other condition is met, and that is the only condition that makes it impossible to move ahead, then it should be other factors that are considered. But to just arbitrarily lower it to another number, and keep in mind now, you're hearing an opinion from somebody who is very much in favor of speed humps. But with that being said, in order for any policy to have any kind of credibility behind it, you really need to have a rationale. So my suggestion would be, in the event that the 1,500 car count is the only condition not met, then with the input of staff, the police, other situations, then the commission can make a recommendation to council to adjust that limit to whatever number it is for any condition, for any situation at the time. That would be the only suggestion that I would make. I just don't think we can. There's no rationale to arbitrarily say, if we say, well, 1,250 is a good number. Well, I think 750 is a good number. So I think maybe what we do instead is say, if you've got 3 or 4 other things, conditions that are not met, then it really doesn't make a difference what the number is, because it's not going to carry a staff recommendation. It's not likely to carry a recommendation to council. And even if it did, council's experience is not going to let that many things be missed and waive it. So I think there has to be a rationale to that number. I just don't think you can limit it because that number is an uncomfortable number.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Lemo. Commissioner Ferris.
Is it along these lines, is it worthwhile to provide some feedback back to staff to say, can you, in looking at some of these numbers, the vehicle trip counts and those sorts of things, to just help it revise, take a look at it again and provide additional rationale, so that when we get back the exact wording, we at least have that basis of understanding for that? I don't know what the numbers should be.
Yeah, well, I can comment on the volume count. Originally, when this policy first was adopted in 1983, the volume count was 2,500 vehicles per day, because for a residential street, that's the carrying capacity of a residential street. So any road above 2,500 vehicles per day was considered sort of the type of road that has an issue, something sort of outside the norm. And over time, what happened was that number went from 2,500 down to 2,000, because all those roads that met the 2,500 criteria all got speed humps. And we got to a point where no speed humps were getting approved, so we had to relax the policy down to 2,000. And so that's where we're at now. I think we're at a point now where most of the streets are, the 2,000 and above streets have been approved and installed for speed humps. Maybe we reach that point where, do we want to relax it further? But the danger with that is, you're going to start including more streets that would qualify, and that creates a problem for the fire, emergency service vehicles. So if you set that number too low, there's could be some unintended consequences.
Okay, do we have any other questions from any of the commissioners? Okay, seeing none, Madam Secretary, do we have any public speakers on this report?
No, we have no individual speakers and no written statements were received.
Okay, commissioners, do we need any further discussion on this issue? Okay, then if there is no further discussion, and this is not an action item, it's only an information item, there's no vote required. So I believe our directive is to therefore provide feedback to staff, and with regard to any changes to attachment 1, which is the resolution that we've been discussing, beyond what is already shown in red. Do any of the commissioners wish to provide any additional feedback to staff? Commissioner Ferris?
Only the thanks of staff for providing the opportunity to discuss this, and I think a worthy discussion on how to provide the update. So thank you all.
And we look forward to bringing it back, the update.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Ferris. Any of the other commissioners, any comments, any additional feedback for staff?
Just quickly, Mr. Chair, I do appreciate both Commissioner Lemos and Commissioner Ferris's. I generally support and like the idea of exploring at least what that number threshold is. I'll leave it to you to find the best way and the best path forward. But I appreciate the conversation from both my fellow commissioners and would like to, support that idea, in considering revisions and coming back to the body here.
Thank you, Vice Chair Pletcher. I would echo those same sentiments. Just my own feedback is that with regard to some of the numbers and some of the thresholds that we see in the resolution, such as more than 75% of the surveyed motorists exceed a speed of 25 miles per hour. The 2,000 vehicle per day warrant. With respect to some of those crucial factors numerically, if when this comes back, we can just have a discussion about the basis and the rationale for those numbers, I think that would be helpful for the commission to better evaluate the utility of the resolution and whether it's as a go forward resolution, it's going to number one, help the city and the residents of this city, and then number two, assist in its application in the future. So that's all I would say. Any other comments from or feedback from any of the other commissioners? Okay. Next, we have the second engineer's report. That is an information item report to be presented by Senior Engineer Jim Mashiko.
Yes, thank you, Chair Immel, and hopefully this we have the PowerPoint up on screen for this one. This is a status report on the traffic conditions of the mini roundabout at the T intersection of Duesenberg Drive and Clearwater Street. And the mini roundabout is located between Thousand Oaks Boulevard and Hillcrest Drive. The area is just north of the Thousand Oaks Auto Mall and to the west of Westlake Hills Elementary School. And here's an aerial photo of the location. This picture shows the before condition at the T intersection. In this northbound view, there are commercial properties on the west side of the street. This picture shows the after condition of the same northbound view. You notice the mini roundabout in the center of the intersection, significant changes to roadway striping and pavement markings, new yield control signs, marked pedestrian crosswalks with crosswalk warning signs, splitter islands, roundabout and speed advisory warning signs, and landscaping enhancements to the west side of the street. Here's a closer view of the intersection. A northbound vehicle in this photo is at the yield sign and stop, since a vehicle inside the roundabout has the right of way. And this view is the coming from the other direction in the southbound side. The new landscaping that bumps out into the street is a design feature to create speed reduction and to direct traffic into a circular path as they enter the intersection. And here's a closer view of that same southbound approach. This photo shows one of the three new marked crosswalks with splitter islands and curb extensions that narrow the walking distance for pedestrians to cross. This image shows the one located at the east leg of the intersection. Pedestrians cross in advance of the roundabout. I'll briefly cover the history of this mini roundabout. This roundabout was paid for and installed by Griffin Fine Living, who developed the new assisted living facility on the west side of Duesenberg Drive. Griffin sought city approval for the installation of this traffic calming device in response to concerns they heard from the neighborhood to the east. This was during their public outreach efforts when seeking city approval of their proposed assisted living facility. The primary concerns voiced to them was speeding activity along Duesenberg Drive and the neighborhood's desire for always stop control at the intersection of Duesenberg and Clearwater. As a result, they proposed the construction of a mini roundabout which would address both of these concerns. In February of 2018, the mini roundabout proposal was considered by the Traffic Commission, and after hearing the public testimony and considering a staff report, the commission unanimously recommended that the City Council recommend the installation. A month later, the City Council approved the installation by Griffin. Staff worked with Griffin from that point on a design that meets state and federal standards, and the project was substantially completed in August of 2020. After initial observations of the roundabout operation indicated that some drivers were driving through the intersection incorrectly, additional enhancements were implemented in November of 2020. And this reflects the field conditions shown in the pictures presented earlier. Prior to the installation of the mini roundabout, we were aware of the benefits and disadvantages to be anticipated, which are summarized on this table. The benefits include decreased delay for drivers exiting Clearwater Street, traffic calming or lower speeds within the vicinity of the roundabout, increase in vehicle safety as a result of the lower speeds and the elimination of right angle conflicts at the intersection, improved safety for the pedestrian crossings, improved bicyclist safety due to reduced speeds. The disadvantages include minor increases to vehicle delay for Duesenberg Drive, confusion for drivers and bicyclists not familiar with yield control and navigating through a roundabout, unbalanced traffic flow entering from all approaches, and emergency vehicles having to wait for the roundabout to clear before entering. Our field observations confirm that these anticipated impacts did occur, with the most common issues centered around driver confusion with the yield controls shortly after implementation, since roundabouts are not a common yield or traffic device in the city. Over time, the motorists have acclimated to this new traffic control device, and the number of concerns voiced to staff have dissipated. I mentioned earlier that there's been a speed reduction on Gooseberry Drive as a result of the roundabout. The prevailing speed has been reduced from 36 to 32 miles an hour between Hillcrest Drive to Thousand Oaks Boulevard. This finding clearly addresses one of the key concerns voiced by the residents prior to the installation. As the drivers approach the roundabout, they should reduce their speed down to 15 miles an hour to navigate safely inside the roundabout. At this point, the mini roundabout is in full compliance with federal installation guidelines due to the reduced speeds achieved. Prior to the installation, the speed criteria was not fully satisfied, but with the traffic calming benefit that we've seen, we've achieved our intended goal. So where do we go from here? Staff believes the current project meets the intended goals and outcomes. As mentioned earlier, we have reduced speeds on Duesenberg Drive. I would also like to point out that there have been no reported collisions at this intersection since the completion of the project. So our plan moving forward is to continue to receive public input, actively monitor field operations, keep an eye on any collisions should they occur, and determine the primary contributing factors, alert the police department of any enforcement requests, and if needed, we're prepared to make adjustments to the roundabout should they become warranted. So with that, this concludes the presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Mashiko. Do the commissioners have any questions of staff on that report? Commissioner Hayek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just say it's interesting to see the roundabout, and it's nice to see that it is working and achieve the goals. So given that, is this something that we would consider for something else in the future? Like, I'm just curious as to what the internal discussion is as to, is it something that we would want to do again?
Yeah, I can offer just a few comments there. You know, these things do work better when there are more of them. You know, I went to Park City a couple of years ago, and there's, you know, keep encountering them. So eventually you kind of, okay, I got to figure this thing out. It's not a one-off. So that does help. And I know that in Santa Barbara, they're doing a major freeway project from Carpinteria to Santa Barbara, and as part of that, they're putting in 3 or 4 of them. So that information is there. In terms of locally here, we do study them. We are we just awarded the construction contract for the Lawrence Drive and Tele Road intersection. The roundabout was contemplated there and studied, and we did a preliminary design, and we did some design comparisons. Ultimately, that location, due to the larger vehicles and commercial activity out there, combined with the cost, the incremental cost increase, which is an extra $1 or $2 million, and a few other drawbacks with the roundabout at that particular location, we decided not to proceed with it there. Roundabout was also in the mix or contemplated for the Rancho Road project, which we're almost completing now, just waiting on a Caltrans cabinet or two. The Rancho Road and 101 freeway upgrades and bikes and sidewalk for the southbound off-ramp, which is just a T intersection there. Roundabout was also contemplated there. In fact, Caltrans makes you go through that process now when you're doing a project that affects their off ramps. You have to go through the intersection control evaluation, ICE evaluation. Roundabout was contemplated and ultimately was based on various factors, was kind of ruled out for that location. So that would be the remarks. It looks like it's a pretty good solution when you're doing a new intersection or a new location or a new roadway. Squeezing it into an existing one it has its challenges in terms of geometrics and cost, but still is being evaluated. I'll let Jim offer any additional comments he might have.
Yeah, I think as Mr. Hidari mentioned that if we're going to put these in, it is helpful in if it's in an area where there's other roundabouts, because I think that was the lessons learned at this location, is that the adjustment of the driver to something new that they're not used to, that took a little while. We did add additional signs to make sure the drivers were driving in a circular motion through the roundabout, because some drivers were driving straight through. Some people were not yielding properly, and that's all those poor behaviors that we observed. We addressed that with additional signs and markings, and in some ways, this location probably has a little bit too much more markings and signs than we originally anticipated. So that's one of the issues that we're going to have to consider in the future, is that we want to try to keep things simplified as much as possible. But in the end, we got the results that we needed. We're looking for. There are some, trade-offs that, we have to consider. We did get the reduced speeds that we're hoping for, and vehicles exiting Clearwater, they're able to get in and out. And it comes down to people have to be patient when they want to get through that intersection, especially during the busy times.
All right, any other commissioner questions of staff? Commissioner Lemo?
Yeah, I have more of a comment than a question. One of the things that has challenged the commission over the years is that stop signs are great for establishing right of way, but that's all, according to the state of California, that they should be used for. What's nice about some of these roundabouts is not only does it help establish right of way, but it also has a side benefit of controlling speed, at least through an intersection. Up in Santa Barbara, well, actually Montecito, where they're going to be having their major intersection bookended by two of these, it really slows traffic down. But both of those intersections were challenged as far as right of way. And even with the stop signs, it didn't establish right of way as good as one of the already installed roundabouts and the new roundabout will be. So I think there are peripheral benefits to the roundabouts. And, the one thing that's been a challenge, I think, for us to look at here is our roundabouts are significantly more expensive because we spend more time on aesthetics. If you go to Europe, the aesthetics of their roundabouts are about the same as the aesthetics of our stop signs. The roundabouts are small. There's very simple metal signage, and every intersection is loaded with 4 to 6 to 10 different arrows telling you how many miles or kilometers to the next various towns. So I think ours are dramatically different than the traditional European roundabouts.
Thank you, Commissioner Lemo. Any further commissioner questions or comments of staff?
I have just a quick comment, Mr. Chair. I just really appreciate staff's willingness to continue to listen to comments and feedback about the roundabout here. I know it's been an adjustment. I remember when we heard this at the Planning Commission level, a large part of our discussion was about the roundabouts. So I'm always appreciative to hear that staff's continuously receiving feedback, interacting, looking into the issues and seeing if any changes are needed. So much appreciated just from a citizen response perspective. Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
All right, well said. Madam Secretary, do we have any speakers or any written statements on this report?
No speakers and no written statements.
Okay. I suppose that wraps up discussion for the commissioners of staff. Unless anybody's got anything else, we'll move on to the next item. Okay, hearing none. We have a third engineer's report that is an information item report, not an action item, to be presented by engineering assistant Bradley Ackert. Mr. Ackert, if you could present your report, we'd be grateful.
Thank you, Chair Emil, and good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Bradley Ackert, and I work in the Traffic Division of Public Works. Today, I'm going to be discussing traffic signal detection and communications within the city of Thousand Oaks. I would like to start off with a breakdown of the traffic signals in the city. There are 135 city-operated signals, 28 Caltrans-operated signals, bringing the total to 163 signals. Now, you may be wondering which of the signals are operated by Caltrans. Any signal that takes you on or off the freeway is operated and maintained by Caltrans. All others are operated from the Traffic Operations Center right down here in Public Works. Here's a map showing the locations of all 163 signals. Each of these little circles that you see down here represents a signal. And as we keep adding more signals, we'll keep updating this map. All right, so let's get into detection. What is detection? Our signals in Thousand Oaks do not rely only on time for cycle length, but also have sensors at every intersection to detect when vehicles are waiting. There are two types of detection that we use in the city. We have loop detection and video detection, camera detection. So loop detection is the older of the two types and is being phased out by the technology in camera detection. Loop detection is a wire installed in the pavement that creates a magnetic field when charged up. When vehicles drive over the loop, the metal in the car disrupts the magnetic field and tells the signal that somebody is waiting. I wanted to show you guys an example of loop detection because I'm sure you've seen them on the road. This is a picture of the intersection of Borchard Road and Reno Road facing southbound. This picture is from 2011, and at that time, the signal was running on loop detection. So the circles that you see down here in the pavement are the loop detection for the signal. So I want to point out the location of the detection loops. Notice they're behind the limit line and not in the crosswalk. That is why it's important for drivers to stop behind the limit line, or else they might not get detected. I mentioned that loop detection is being phased out, and that is because it has some huge flaws. Loop detection has trouble detecting bicycles. Newer bicycles do not have enough metal in them to disrupt that magnetic field and cannot be detected by the signal. We have a ton of bikers in Thousand Oaks, and this is a big inconvenience for those residents. In many instances, the bicyclist will go push the ped button, which defeats the whole purpose of having detection. Another con with loop detection is the cost versus camera detection. One loop to be installed, one of these little loops, costs about $1,000. So let's put that into perspective. Each lane requires 2 loops with 4 in the turn pocket and 2 in advance of the intersection for a total of 10 loops. This would cost around $10,000, where a single detection camera can do all that and cost $5,000. Now, let's transition into the much more popular camera detection. I want to start off by showing you an example of an intersection that uses camera detection. This is the intersection of Thousand Oaks Boulevard at Rancho Road facing westbound. You can see the cameras are mounted on top of the safety light and they face opposing traffic. Since this intersection has cameras all the way around, the loops that you see down here have been abandoned. If we skip over to the next slide, I can show you the camera's point of view. This is a screenshot of the live feed at the intersection of Avenida de los Arboles at Lynn Road. As you can see, the camera projects a detection box that extends about 40 feet long and is the width of the lane. The detection box stays black until a vehicle approaches and enters the box, which you can see now turns to green. The important thing I want to mention about these cameras is that they do not record. We do get a lot of phone calls from residents asking for camera footage because they got into a collision or received a red light ticket. The cameras do not record and can only detect cars. Again, it's really important to notice where the detection box is. The camera detection box is behind the limit line and inside the lane. So if you're waiting up here in front of the crosswalk, or you're way back behind the limit line, you will not be detected. The old wives' tale of flashing your lights at the signal or rolling back and forth does not work on any type of detection in Thousand Oaks. Camera detection is not perfect, however, and there are some instances where it can receive false calls or no calls at all. If we move to the next slide, I'd like to show you one of those examples. This is a screenshot of the same intersection just a little bit later in the day. We have lots of trees in Thousand Oaks, and in the afternoon, they start to create shadows on the road. So if we look down here for eastbound Arboles, we're getting a ghost call caused by those shadows. The pros do greatly outweigh the cons with camera detection, and I want to show you some examples of that. Previously, I had mentioned that loop detection was not very effective for bicycles, and that is not an issue with camera detection. All of the detection cameras can detect bicycles, but the new cameras have better software that makes it easier to track the bicycles. I would like to show you an example of these new cameras. This is a screenshot from the intersection of Avenida de los Arboles at Kensington Avenue with one of the new high definition cameras. If we move to the next slide, I could show you the little bicycle symbols for the eastbound direction. You see these down here. This camera has been programmed for maximum sensitivity, which makes it easier to detect smaller traffic. Avenida de los Arboles has a heavy thoroughfare of bicycles, and they will not affect the flow of traffic with these new cameras. While we're on this slide, there's one more thing I want to point out. These cameras also provide advanced detection about 300 feet away from the intersection. So let's say that Arboles has a green light and has not reached its maximum cycle time. You're approaching the intersection back here, that little car that's back there, and you get detected by detector 14, the little green box. The signal will hold for an additional 3 seconds so you can clear the intersection before the light changes to red. A couple things I want to mention before we move on. An intersection can have both loop and camera detection. Each leg of the intersection only needs one type of detection, and as loops age and begin to fail, we replace them with cameras. So there are intersections that have both present. I would like to give you an idea of that breakdown citywide. Right now, out of 135 total intersections, 112 have camera detection, 16 have loop detection, and 7 have both. So most of our signals are running on camera detection, but there are some that still need to be upgraded. Now that we discussed detection, I would like to transition over into communications. In order for us to be able to pull up that camera feed from the Traffic Operations Center here in Public Works, we need to have communications to the intersection. There are 3 types of communications that we currently use: copper fiber, copper wire, fiber optic cable, and wireless communications. Out of 135 intersections, we have communications to 92. That means 43 intersections still need it. And just so you have an idea, these intersections are primarily located south of the 101 freeway. It is very useful for us to be able to pull up the camera feed. It makes it easy to make sure the detection is working, and especially respond to resident concerns without having to leave the office. So that bears the question, what are we going to do about the remaining 43? Well, I'm very excited to tell you that Public Works has been working to add 12 intersections via wireless communications. We are working on getting the units installed on Raznau Peak. So if we go to this slide, we have a map of the traffic signals and the water tanks. So the brown triangle down here is the Raznau Peak communication site. If the wireless unit has a line of sight to the intersection, then communications can be reached. It might sound easy, but there are a lot of trees, buildings, and hills blocking that line of sight in Thousand Oaks. So these purple triangles right here are the 12 that I'm talking about located in Newbury Park that we're going to add communications via Raznau Peak. By next summer, we should have those additional signals online from the Traffic Operations Center. So slowly but surely, we'll be working to install communications to all 135 signals. Now that I hope you have somewhat of an idea about traffic signal detection and communications, are there any questions?
Thank you, Bradley. I just wanted to make a remark as prior to the questions that, you know, a lot of cities have invest a lot of time and energy into this, and we really try to keep up with it as best we can, and yet do it at a economical level. And Bradley is a key component, along with Robert Sweeting and our senior traffic engineer Jim Mashiko, to really keep proper upkeep and oversight on these 135 intersections. So just want to appreciate them for that. Yeah, open up for questions.
Chair, email, I have a question.
Yeah.
I actually have a question and a comment. I want to start off with a comment and a request that I would say I receive somewhere between 2 and 4 phone calls every single week, except for during the holidays, from residents who I either know or are old friends of mine. And as they age, their complaints are always the same. I sat at a light for 10 minutes the other day. Why doesn't the Traffic Commission do something about it? And so what I would love to have happen, because I thought your presentation was perfect for that, would be to take an isolated part of your presentation and just run it in a loop on the public TV channel. I think it would be beneficial for these people who have so much time on their hands because they're rushing to get through those lights to be exposed to that. However, I do have a question about one particular intersection where not only I, but even the police have said that after certain amounts of time, people just take the law into their own hands and leave. And that is the intersection of Borchard and Via Ricardo as you come to the top of the hill in the Dos Vientos section. I have been at that light at least a half dozen times where it just doesn't function at all. It gets stuck on red and it never moves off of red. Never, meaning a period of anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes. I would say 10 minutes is the mark where everybody treats the intersection like there's a stop sign and they all alternate. I don't know if that's a hang up in the system or if it's, you know, such a new area, such a new thing that there's been some misfiring on it. I don't see that very often anywhere in Thousand Oaks. I think our systems work really spectacularly. But can you tell me if you've had a problem? I was told in a meeting that I had up there at one of the schools that when I was talking with the police officer who was there, that they have had concerns about that intersection. Do you know if there's been a problem there and if that problem's been corrected?
I don't know about any specifics to that intersection, but I mean, it could be false detection, like we're talking with the shadows. It could be pedestrian. I mean, I observe this all the time. Pedestrians or bicyclists, they go up to the intersection, they hit them both, and they cross wherever goes first. And then people are sitting at a light going, why am I sitting at this light?
I understand. That makes sense.
So a lot of times it's that where you don't, the pedestrian's long gone, but you're still sitting there going, what's going on? It could be any variety of those things, but that's something we could look into, definitely.
Yeah, I would just check that for the heck of it. But I really think the presentation was exactly what I think, particularly our citizens, my age and older, would benefit hearing and seeing, because you made it very easy to understand, and there's no mystery to what's going on out there, which is very nice.
Well, I have a question for you, Commissioner Lemo. Are you sitting in the detection zone? Are you sitting too far behind it? Or are you?
I will tell you that I would have to be honest and say that after paying closer attention to your presentation, the answer to your question is yes, I have from time to time, but because of your presentation, I will go out of my way not to make that error again, or to be more cognizant of it.
Because that could totally be it too. You could, if you're not in the right area, you're not going to get detected. It doesn't mean you're there.
You're absolutely right. And I appreciate that. And that's why I think it would be really kind of interesting for people to see this on public access. I think it was really well done. And so I appreciate that. And I think if we were being honest, I'm not in the right place at the right time all the time, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Lemo, you would be surprised how often they replay these traffic commission recordings on TOTV actually. So this will be playing for the public to enjoy.
Oh, good. That's wonderful. Thank you.
We have Commissioner
I would
Hyde.
like to add one thing. I'm sorry to interrupt. In terms of like, if there is something wrong with a signal, you feel like it's not cycling forward, we do have a preventive maintenance program where our intersections are all checked once every 3 months. So in between times, from time to time, parts may fail, components may fail. So if an issue is going on, we rely on the public to let us know that they had an experience at the signal, and we'll be glad to check in on it.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Hayek and then Commissioner Ferris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question as far as when you hit into that zone, what is the timing for the cycle? Is it the same at all intersections, or what determines the timing of when that light will cycle?
The cycle length is different at every intersection, but I'll give you an example. Let's talk about Olson at Herbs Road, where you go into one of the turn pockets to turn from Olson to Herbs, and the light's green, but you have a red arrow. That gap out time is about 5 seconds. So if you're sitting on that sensor for 5 seconds and no one else is coming the other direction, that'll give you the green to give you the arrow to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So is there a formula? So what determines how the times are set by the intersection? Is it by traffic count or what?
Yeah, it's by volume.
Okay.
It's volume. It's also like, curvature, sight distance. If one road is an arterial roadway that, we want to try to prioritize as opposed to, which of the two legs is that carries more traffic, and many other factors.
But we really try to make them as snappy as possible, so you're not sitting there when nobody's there. If there's no other traffic being detected, the light should change within 5 to 10 seconds.
Okay. I think it's important for people to hear that, of how the timing of the light cycles. So if we're going to replay this 100 times in the next 6 months, so thank you.
All right, Commissioner Ferris.
Yeah, super quick comment. I just wanted to offer my thanks. I thought it was a really great presentation. So thanks so much for it. It was really, really well done.
Thank you.
All right, I'll just ask my own question here for a second. Again, great presentation. I think it was clear. I think it was concise. And as Commissioner Lemo said, I think a lot of people in the city would really benefit from hearing that presentation. I think there is somewhat of a, I guess, a misconception about whether those cameras posted on the traffic signals do record, right? I mean, people see cameras nowadays and they think of no other purpose for a camera than it's recording me or it's recording something. So just for clarification's sake, though, if you're getting a feed from the camera back at the traffic control center, you can record that. I mean, there's got to be a device that you could hook up to that feed and record it. But what I hear you saying is that is simply not done. Is that right?
Correct. Because I mean, we could pull up one intersection at a time, and you're talking about citywide. I think that would just be too much data to have.
And so those screenshots that you showed us when you were giving your presentation, those were just real-time screenshots that you were probably taking for the purpose of this presentation and not something that's archived in some city file cabinet somewhere, right?
You're absolutely correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from any of the commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I just had a quick comment and question.
Sure.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for the presentation. I echo my fellow commissioners. Very, very clear, very, very concise. Kind of playing off of what Commissioner Lemo said. The only other call or questions I get from residents from time to time is the idea of the traffic signal synchronization. And them just, and it's typically like on 1000 Oaks Boulevard on at rush hour, they're saying, well, I thought all these signals were synced. I thought this. I just wanted to ask a very general question. If you could just go through and just briefly explain traffic signal synchronization and kind of what the thought process is behind what we do or what we don't do and how we approach that issue.
Yeah. So this isn't the San Fernando Valley. This isn't, we really only have a few arterial roads that are going into synchronization during rush hour to get you. You have Moore Park Road, you have Lynn, 1000 Oaks Boulevard, Hillcrest, but a lot of them are mostly running on free, which means we're relying on the detection. We're relying on you to get there and be detected by the signal, like more of a first come, first served basis.
And part of that rationale is that we don't have a grid system in Thousand Oaks where it's, you can have some predictable pattern with the curvilinear streets and the non-standard layout. It doesn't lend itself to having a simplified, synchronization pattern that carries traffic in that type of fashion. So
absolutely, when we're out there doing traffic counts just to see, we're talking like if we're talking turn pockets, like a good one would be Moore Park Road at Arbalest, the southbound left. If we sit there for an hour in the morning and do counts, sometimes you have a stack of 2 cars in the turn pocket, and the next cycle you have 12, and you're trying to balance that. What do you design for? Do you go for 12 every time, even though there's 2 people, there are a couple cycles? That's our thought process that we're trying to balance. And
Well, and again, I appreciate it. It's just one of those issues that's come up, and it's from people I do know that, go to the Valley to go to work or go, they work in Woodland Hills, Calabasas, Studio City. So they do mention that from time to time. So I appreciate you indulging my question. And
Robert, do you have anything you want to add?
Traffic signal operations engineer Robert Sweeting could probably add more commentary.
Yeah, And good evening, commissioners. Just to add in, so we have about 5 locations that do have coordination on them. But for instance, I can run, let's say on Thousand Oaks Boulevard that you're speaking of, at Westlake and Thousand Oaks Boulevard is our busiest intersection in town at about 60,000 cars a day and about 6,000 in the evening peak. Well, just down the road at Cord, like where the McDonald's is, they're doing about 20,000. So they're not, they're not equal in numbers. And I can run through the coordination between Packard and Duesenberg twice for the amount of time that I could do if I added in Westlake Boulevard, because all intersections are not created equal. Some have 20,000, some have 15, and a lot of those are the same that are on the boulevard, but the side streets make a difference in the time. Another huge factor is the pedestrian time. So imagine the amount of time it takes to get across like Westlake and TO as it might down at Duesenberg, that is a smaller street. So in order to get the people across the street, there's kind of a formula, if you will, on how to get from one intersection to another. So we have short segments of maybe 5 to 6 Moore Park Road between TOB and Wilbur. Then we don't do anything. We kind of skip Gainsboro and we pick back up at Canal Valley Plaza, Jan's, all the way through Columbia. And then we kind of pick up again, same thing on Lynn Road, because they're not all equal. And so they all have different patterns from 90-second cycle lengths to 150 seconds, depending on morning, afternoon, and evening. So there is a big variety of time that goes into it.
And you're able to, in many of those intersections, you got pre-programmed to behave differently at different times of the day, whether it's...
Yeah, they're all pre-programmed exactly for different times of the day. And we're actually looking at getting some new software that will actually do counts on the fly and automatically change it, let's say from 120-second cycle length to maybe 90 to 140 and back down to 120. So we're actually looking at getting new software to even do that. So
yeah,
there is that type of
machine learning and AI out there. I started talking to a finance department about that earlier today. So.
But that comes back to these cameras that Bradley gave you that report on, and it all comes back to all the detection that these cameras can do, taking counts and speeds and all kinds of other variables that would go into that timing. So it is an interesting not dilemma, it's a set of factors that go into all the traffic signal timing.
All right, thank you, staff, for your comments and responses. Commissioners, we have any other questions of staff or comments? Okay, not seeing any. Madam Secretary, do we have any speakers or written statements on this report?
No speakers and no written statements. Okay.
Well, I don't think there's any more from the commissioners, so we can move on now to the fourth engineer's report. Who among staff is going to be giving this report?
I'll just briefly make comment on it that there is no staff report for this item, which is the bicycle advisory team meeting minutes, which took place in December. So it was just there for your information, just so that you're up to date as far as what's happening with the BAT.
Okay, we don't need to take any action on that?
No action.
Okay, that has been received by commissioners. I mean, do we have any speakers on this item or any written statements? No?
No speakers, no written statements.
Okay. Do we need any further discussion on this subject at all? Do the commissioners have anything to add? Any comments? Okay, not seeing any. Now we're moving on to item number 9 in the agenda, which is the status report of prior traffic commission recommendations. Is this a staff report, or is this a status report that is simply read into the record?
Yeah, just information. We normally place on if there's a previous item that the commission considered, we like to just, write it down so that you're aware of what happened to that particular item. The last meeting in October, there was an item for the Thousand Oaks Boulevard at Live Oak and Oakview. There's a crosswalk that's in design. The commission looked at it, and now at this point, it's moved to final design. There's a consultant that the city had hired to perform the final design, and then that project will advance forward and be presented to city council for bid and construction. Hopefully, it's going to take a while, but spring of 2022 and completed by summer of 23.
Do any of the commissioners have any comments or questions for staff on this item? Okay, not seeing any. Item 10, commission referrals from our October 2021 meeting. There were none. Item number 11, work program and commission schedule. Are there any questions of staff on that particular subject from any of the commissioners? Not seeing any. Item number 12, traffic commission comments discussion. Anything else that the commissioners want to raise or address at this time?
Mr. Chair, I just want to briefly say welcome to the new assistant city attorney. We go back just a little bit. We worked together previously in the city of Palmdale. It's good to see Noel behind the Zoom. Thousand Oaks has a true value add in the city attorney's office by hiring him. So welcome, sir.
Appreciate it. It's been a great couple months. Everyone's been super nice and welcoming. So I'm excited to get to work and excited to work with this commission and the rest of the city. So thank you.
Excellent. Welcome. Okay, I believe we have concluded all items needed to be addressed on the agenda, and I think we're ready to adjourn. So the next meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission will be held at 6:00 p.m. on February 16th, 2022 in the boardroom of the Civic Arts Plaza on the 3rd floor, or I have a feeling by virtual meeting, the way we're all seeing each other here tonight. So with that being said, we'll adjourn the meeting. Everybody have a good night.